All right, welcome to Career Explorer. This is a series where you can learn about potential career paths. And my hope is that you'll treat this as a career conversation, a mentorship chat, and an informational interview all rolled into one. Plus, because this is on YouTube, you can watch this video from your pajamas if you'd like. My name is Tory and I'm a career and leadership coach. If you want to learn more about me and coaching programs that I have available, you can check out the links below. You can also subscribe if you want to see more career journeys. We have a series of videos coming up on this channel, so subscribe if you want to learn more there. A few logistics before we get started. This is going to be a series of short videos in a playlist. So if you want, you can jump to the question that interests you most, or you can just start at the beginning of the playlist, hit autoplay, and then watch everything all the way through. And you'll be hearing today from our guest all about different aspects of his career. And our guest today is Shashwat Lal. He's a software engineer at Google. Welcome, Shashwat.
Hey, Tory. Good seeing you again. Thank you for having me.
I know. It's good to see you over Zoom.
Oh, I know, right?
It's been too long in person, but post-COVID world, things will change.
Things will get back to where they were. And we'll see each other again. And we'll talk about this conversation no matter how it goes.
That's good. All right, well, and so for this first video, Shashwat, I want to hear a little bit about your career path and the things that led you to Google. And so where I'll start is when you were 10 years old, would you have pictured yourself in the job that you're in now?
I would have pictured myself in front of a computer, but I did not know what to picture as for my actual work. So I could see myself, sitting at a desk all day, and because I was fascinated with computers from the very beginning. But working at Google always seemed like a stretch.
So something about that computer and desk really drew you to it. What was fun in that computer world that you encountered?
Yeah, so I got my first computer, I think, at around age 9 or 10. And that was a big deal back at home, right? That was like, before then you had calculators, before then you had like these handheld startup computers, but not quite. And they had like 2 lines worth of display. And you feel like, I'm bored, what do I do? And, your older brother is occupying or taking up all the toys. So you only have like these things to mess around with. And then these are things that is very amenable to experimentation. You just pick it up, try something, work. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, no harm done. So from that point on, when we got our first computer, I brought this experimental attitude to it. Oh, and that was disastrous a number of times. But it's
what did you do? What did you do to your computer?
Oh God. Yes, we have spent many nights locked in our bedroom from the inside, trying to rescue our computer so that mom and dad do not find out how broken it is.
I like it. You're like, we bought this expensive thing and we broke it. Don't worry, we'll fix it.
Yeah, that never worked, and we always had to call somebody to, okay, if they mess it up, sorry, but we need the pros. So, so from that point on, right, like there is just this connection that you build towards something that you break, or towards something that allows you to express yourself. So at that point, people start programming when they're young. And I only began programming like very casually. So you had QBasic, then you had Visual Studio, so Visual C++, Visual Basic, all of that. So I kind of got my hands dirty in like all of these things. But you also hear of people who get like right into it, who get so into it from when they were kids, that they're building things, like understanding how everything works, like the ones and zeros. That wasn't quite me. I definitely strove to understand how things worked, but not to the level where like, okay, programming in my free time. There was a lot of like games involved, lots of like just messing around. So yeah, there was the relationship with computers, which grew with time, and that's why I could see myself spending the rest of my life in this relationship in some way.
And it sounds like almost that curiosity and that, okay, what can I do with this? As you kept putting energy into it, it was like, okay, this is actually giving me something back. This is interesting, right?
Totally, you nailed it. You type a command and then like a picture appears on the screen, a picture that you created out of nowhere, and that's satisfying. Mhm.
Power! I can make a picture up here on the screen.
It is for a kid. That's the only power you have.
Yeah, that's true.
Only thing you feel like you have control over.
Yeah. Well, and so that sense of, all right, my parents might be telling me what to do, but this computer, I can tell it what to do.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know. And that is very liberating at that age, I felt.
And so from that place where you were, actually working with this computer and getting more and more competence there, how did that lead you to Google?
In some ways, this is accidental, but I'll take you back to how it all began. So I did imagine myself being with computers for the rest of my life, like professionally. But in college, I did not study computer science. And that was because I also thought I was interested in science and math. So I could also see myself working with numbers the rest of my life, or like working as something of a scientist. I mean, I wouldn't have been very good at it in retrospect, but there were two other things that I wanted or I could see myself doing, and I picked one of these as my major in undergrad. So, uh, 2 years in, you kind of know that okay, this is not what I thought it would be, or you feel like sure it's interesting, but you don't necessarily feel fulfilled by it, or you don't necessarily like see yourself doing it for a long time. So from year two and year three, I just tried to get back into fiddling around with computers in my spare time. And at that point, it was a more serious endeavor. Like you were trying to build things, you were trying to do things that were useful, and not just like goofing around, like playing games. So, you know, from then you begin to get exposed to the wider community, and the community is what helps sustain people's interest, right? So you see people working on these projects, and then you collaborate with them. It's open source programs. So I ended up participating in this program called Google Summer of Code. And that is something that Google at least used to have for college students. And what they would do is they would match a student with a project. So, let's say I'm a university and my project is to build like some software to help with my analysis. Like I have some data and I need to get some insights out of it. So, I'm building this thing which will help me do that, but you need help. And you sign up for this program, and then this program matches you with a student, and then that way it's mutually beneficial. So that's something I did in third year of undergrad. And that was really like one of the stepping stones to ending up at Google. So
Yeah. Well, and so it sounds like there's two things I heard there. One, this sort of choice of do I want to go the math science path or do I want to go the computer path? And almost this like sensing of which one was an easier fit. Is that a fair characterization of the decision making? How did that work for you, sort of evaluating those different paths?
yeah, so to be fully transparent, I think it requires some understanding of how things work in India. And this might not apply to everybody, right? But the way things work is you choose your major like at the time that you join college. And the
Huh.
way you choose your major is dependent on how well you do in the test. So if you did exceedingly well in the test, then you get your pick of what you want to do. If you don't, then it's like, okay, sure, people have taken their pick before you, and you kind of have to evaluate, okay, there are all these other things that are available to me. Which of these am I satisfied with? So
Huh.
that's how like I ended up in chemical engineering. And the choice was mostly between, okay, do I take this at a good university or do I take computer science at maybe a university that wasn't as good conventionally? So yeah, I was pretty happy with my choice, but then over time, yeah, as you said, right, like there's this kind of tension.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you were sort of navigating the system as is, right? Okay, this is what I tested into, this is what I can pick. But then almost like the computer stuff was calling of like, oh, don't forget about me. Like, you still like this, come back over here, right? I don't know, but it somehow found its way back in. Does that
Yeah,
land?
yeah, totally. And you cannot keep computers and the person separate from each other for a long time.
They're meant to be, they're meant to be.
We-
The other interesting thing you were mentioning was almost this community around it, right? And this group of people in the open source community. Say more about how that influenced your path.
Yeah. So a lot of impactful and honestly revolutionary, um, I guess, products built for the computer have originated from someone doing it as a passion project, or someone doing it, as a research project in university, and eventually it goes into the public domain. So I think it started from there, and people, a group of enthusiasts, you know, they come together online, and they're like, okay, you know what? There is this machine learning project that I'm interested in. Who else, wants to help me work on it? So this is how people, I think, assemble informally. And for me, this was key in Google Summer of Code because that was an open source program. And that's how you connect with other people, like people from Europe, people from North America, and so on. And as a kid in India, this is like something exceptional. You don't get to do that every day. Your circle is pretty small, and that opens up your worldview a lot more. So, and once you begin seeing that the work you've done has made its way into something real and something useful to people, it's really satisfying, and you want to do more of it.
And so I'm
So
almost getting that sense of greater connection with the world and like visibility onto your potential impact. And so then actually choosing Google as an employer makes sense because, gosh, the opportunity for impact as an engineer at Google is pretty stellar. I don't know if that's how that maps, but at least for me, it's like, well, yeah, that's a place to have a lot of impact,
yeah, you nailed it. Sorry.
right? Just an opportunity. Awesome. Anything else about your path to get there that you want to call out? Anything else that's worth sharing with folks?
Oh yeah. So just to fill in some gaps from how I got here. So doing this work in undergrad helped me with um, making it to a grad program in computer science in the US. And that was finally how I landed at Google. Right? So from there, getting an internship at Google in my first year, and then from the internship, you convert to a full-time employee. So that's how I ended up where I am. So again, like I would say, staying in touch with what you want to do is very important. Like whether you do it in your spare time or whether you do it full time, like some amount of connection and some amount of like just keeping up with things was very useful for me.
Yeah. When it seems like even in the cases where that faded in the background, it somehow came back into the foreground. And so almost listening to that and saying like, okay, wait a minute, I seem like I want to spend more time on this. I'm going to put more energy into it. Seems like that was part of the process.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you let it go, if I let this go for like 2 years in college, then that connection, no matter how strong it was, would have been gone. And I wouldn't have been able to see myself, at least I wouldn't have the confidence to see myself entering back into it full time.
Yeah. And so almost putting that continued investment into it and letting that grow has given you that footing to stand on and continue to invest in it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, in retrospect.
Yeah. Oh, and that's such a unique way to view the path, right? Of like, all right, I'm going to put the time in and that's going to help open these doors. Awesome. Well, and so in the next video, we'll dive in a little bit about what it's like to be a software engineer day to day, since we've heard about your path there. How's that sound?
We're looking forward to it. Let's get to it.
All right. See you there.